Good evening from Rally headquarters here in Cheltenham. Day 2 of the Network Q Rally of Great Britain. And as we anticipated, a day packed full of incident, a complete contrast with the rather low-key progress through yesterday's Sunday spectator stages. Yesterday was definitely a day to be cautious, but Richard Burns was able to finish the day in the top 4. He was ahead of his Great British rival Colin McRae, who after a frustrating day was 24 seconds behind the rally leader. And that leader was Juha Kankkunen in his Subaru. There were no major casualties yesterday. But it was a much tougher prospect today on the slippery tracks of the forests and moorland of mid-Wales. A total of 96 stage miles today compared to the 22 of yesterday. Overnight we had Juha Kankkunen leading from the Peugeots of Delacour and Grönholm. Richard Burns fourth, getting the better of Colin McRae, at least on those spectator stages. Once again, Ari Vatanen is with us to give his thoughts on the events of this second day. A day that began at 7:40 in the morning with a stage at Radna, a 14.8 mile stage, followed by Crücken, Escadavid and Towie, with more classic tests to come later in the day in the Hafren Forest. Mark James watched them on their way.
Overnight rain had meant that a damp, misty Radna forest greeted the spectators, many of whom had been in the stage for several hours. The road surface had also suffered from the change in the weather, so it was a slippery 14 miles of Welsh forest which lay in wait for the crews, who'd been forewarned by their gravel crews of what lay in store. What they hadn't expected was the sheer number of spectators in Radna. The astonishing sight of people standing in the road and on the chosen line through some corners cost an angry Colin McRae valuable seconds. This incredible on-board shot, however, shows just how hard Colin was trying.
And 6 left over crest. Into 6 left, 150. 6 left cat into long 6 crest.
The overnight leader Juha Kankkunen slipped to second place on the stage, but Kankkunen and co-driver Juha Repo were trying a new Pirelli tyre and declared themselves to be more than happy with the level of grip it offered. 2 other Finns were also in the top 5 stage times. Harry Rovanpera's Seat was 5th quickest, a little over 4 seconds slower than the Peugeot 206 of Marcus Grönholm, now the leading Peugeot driver in 3rd place overall. Further down the leaderboard, Carlos Sainz's Toyota was now 6th overall, just behind McRae's Ford Focus, while Belgium's Bruno Thierry managed to beat Sainz's time on stage 8 by nearly a second. The Skoda was now 10th. But stage 8 wasn't all good news. Tommi Mäkinen lost around 20 seconds with a mysterious electrical problem. As predicted, however, the star of stage 8 was Richard Burns.
50 braking easy left tightens, maybe 20 fast left, minus, long, 60, left max over crest, slippy maybe, go 80, left max long slippy to left max in slippy, go 80 keep right to turn easy left in.
Beating his teammate Kankkunen by 8.5 seconds, Burns reached service in Builth Wells, having snatched the rally lead. Our man Peter Slater was there to greet the crews.
These indoor sheds at Builth's Royal Welsh Showground offered great servicing areas as the top cars returned from their early morning encounter with the Welsh forests. World champion Tommi Mäkinen was first car through. He complained of an intermittent electrical fault, but the Mitsubishi mechanics were able to ease the problems. It was first blood to Subaru though. Richard Burns, delighted with his car, his tyres, his position on the road, with pretty much everything.
Judging by the tyre marks in the front 2 cars, there's a few places where they're obviously pushing a bit harder, but I don't think they've got as much grip as we have.
The British fans are out in force on the stages and at service, but their adulation for Colin McRae hasn't been reciprocated.
They're absolutely terrible. It's the worst ever anywhere in the World Championship. You can't concentrate. It's impossible. If they're trying to support us, then they're not. They're slowing us down. They need to stand back or we can't do anything.
Better marshalling you need?
I don't think it's marshalling. I think the people just need to think a wee bit. They're standing right on the outside of a 6-gear corner, right on the line. I mean, I'm having to alter my line in every corner. So they're not giving us any support by doing that.
Colin McRae very concerned about the spectators, but a very positive start to this second day for Richard Burns. Fastest on the opening stage and good enough to take the lead overall from Mäkinen. Colin McRae up to 5th. And after that first service of the day came the toughest section of the rally so far. 3 stages back-to-back, a total of close on 30 stage miles. Tiff Needell and Mark James continue the story.
The Richard Burns tour de force continued through the forests of stages 9 and 10, where 2 more quickest times for the young Englishman saw him extend his lead by just over 13 seconds. The Pirelli tyres were working well. His high-tech paddle change gearbox was behaving impeccably, and he looked in majestic form. By contrast, his much-vaunted Scottish rival Colin McRae was still struggling to find enough grip for his Ford Focus, dropping another 19 seconds over just 16 miles, but still hanging on in 5th place. A different tyre choice and stiffer suspension would be fitted at the midday service. Carlos Sainz was another struggling to stay on the pace of the leaders. He was just managing to keep his Corolla ahead of McRae, but would be nearly 50 seconds off the top 3 after stage 11. Mäkinen was still setting competitive times, and there will be no team orders to prevent the Finn fighting for his 4th British victory.
And flat left. I keep left over 200. To very long fast right. 100, crest 100, turn, open hairpin left.
Just one victory would be enough to put the icing on the World Champions cake, but Tommi Mäkinen's miserable luck in Britain continued.
150. Nyt tosi pitkä tuovasen kirjaa. Tuolla on pirun pitkä oikein nopea miinus. Voi helvetti, pientä
He hit a rock and broke a shock absorber in stage 9, leaving him to pogo his way through the next 2 stages before he could reach service, now down in 17th place. All of which was good news for the Seats, who, like the Subarus, were finding their Pirelli rubber well suited to the conditions. Harry Rovanperä started the day 10th, 5 places ahead of his Finnish teammate Tony Gardemeister, but he lost time going off on stage 10, allowing his younger compatriot to move ahead of him. They'd reached the service halt an impressive 6th and 7th. Right behind the Seats came the Skodas, having their most impressive outing so far in their brief World Rally Car history. New recruit Bruno Thierry was now up to 9th, just 1 place ahead of teammate Armin Schwartz.
Stage 11 was the most westerly of the rally's 22, but only by a few miles. Towie Forest, northwest of Bilthwells, was also the highest on the event. Not that low cloud would be a problem this year. Tommi Mäkinen and Risto Mäkinen took advantage of a short delay to check the damage at the arrival control. Stage 11's 14 miles still stood between the 2 Finns and their mechanics, and all the lost time meant the rally was now a learning exercise in preparation for next year. It was another Finn who was fastest on the stage, Marcus Gronholm, who stormed through Towie, although the stage was less kind to his teammate. Francois Delacour's 206 got stuck in second gear and 3 minutes were lost. Also suffering was Didier Auriol. That little excursion was followed by a spin, during which the Frenchman stalled the car. The Toyota's lack of grip was later blamed on a poor tyre choice. All the problems meant the Seats were moving up the leaderboard. Gwyndaf Evans and Howard Davis were fourth quickest on stage 11 and had closed the gap on their Finnish colleagues. The Welsh duo were now 8th overall. Skoda's promising run was also continuing. Armin Schwartz was 7th quickest on the stage and 10th overall. Spectators were still causing problems, but it was now the fact that the forests were full, not the places they were standing. Colin McRae still wasn't enjoying the Welsh stages, however. 11th quickest in Towie, he and Nicky Grist were 5th overall. But there was much worse news for Colin's younger brother Alistair, who crashed his Hyundai out of the event on the stage, effectively handing the Formula 2 World Championship to Renault. Richard Burns started stage 11 with a lead of 13.1 seconds over Juha Kankkunen. But Gronholm's amazing performance meant that Burns' lead was slashed to less than 3 seconds, and the Peugeot now split the two Subarus. There was, though, much worse news for the team management waiting in Bilth. An oil fire on the road section which followed the stage saw Burns and co-driver Robert Reid out of the car, fire extinguishers at the ready. The minutes were ticking by, and the frustration on the faces of both Richard and Robert was painfully clear. Sainz's Toyota squeezed past, followed by the other Impreza. Kankkunen, though, could do little except check his colleagues were okay. The damage was repairable, but it would take another anxious road section before Burns could reach service, where Peter Slater was among the reception committee.
There were plenty of worried faces waiting to see if Richard Burns could bring his Subaru back to Bilth in one piece, including girlfriend Saffron. The anxiety didn't stop once he did make it, as the team tried to find out exactly what was going on under that smoking bonnet. Colin McRae had seen it all before. Mind you, Richard didn't seem too worried either.
The fire is obviously fairly dangerous, but I mean, I think it's just some small thing that's leaking, and it's not, by the looks of it, it's something as simple maybe as the oil filter or something like that. So it should be no problem just to fix it here.
But what was the initial reaction?
Get out and put it out.
Team boss David Richards looked on as the mechanics used their 20-minute service time well. The oil filter was indeed the problem. They also changed the turbo. If he'd been at all hot under the collar earlier, Richard Burns was now cool, calm and collected as he went out again to try and protect his lead. For a rueful-looking Tommi Mäkinen, the day continued badly. The damage sustained on the day's second stage had left the world champion out of contention, but he was still able to use his philosophical Rally of Great Britain smile.
It just broke the damper and well, of course, car is not drivable anymore. We had to continue slowly, and that's it.
So what do you think they can do here?
They can fix it. Of course, they can fix it here in 20 minutes, no problem. But we are 2 minutes 50 seconds behind. It's a bit too long way.
Another Finn was flying. Marcus Gronholm's performance on stage 11 was stunning. Even he couldn't believe he'd been 12 seconds quicker than anyone else.
I don't understand. Maybe I tried to go quite slow in the corners to have a grip out from the corners and not slide wide. So maybe it's that is the reason. I don't know.
Gronholm going well, but Richard Burns surviving a real drama. He was still out front after that 11th stage of the day, but his lead over Marcus Gronholm had been slashed back to 2.8 seconds. Kankkunen in third, Sainz fourth, and McRae now fifth. 4 stages still remaining in the day. But Ari Vatanen, your reaction to the way that Richard Burns handled that crisis, it looked as if it could have been really serious. He kept his composure, though.
Yeah, exactly. But a real professional. Of course, when you suddenly see fire and you think the worst, scenario, but luckily that was not the case, and no, he's doing extremely well.
How well prepared are the drivers to cope with situations like that? They have to do it all themselves.
Drivers are not well prepared at all, so that's why normally it's a co-driver who comes out with the extinguisher, and that's what at least what happened with me always. But I was surprised actually that Richard did all the work himself.
The other talking point of the day so far, Colin McRae, his criticism of the behaviour of the spectators on some of the stages at the apex of very fast hairpins and so on. Is this a growing problem in the sport? It's a problem that we don't normally associate with this event.
That's right, it's mainly on a continent, but now with these two, Colin and Richard, doing so well, I mean, rally has become so popular, and in a way it's strangling in itself now, and so some serious rethinking has to be done, because the well stages are the best, but then on the other hand the network of roads and the poor access doesn't lend itself to that number of spectators.
Well, that was the other big problem out on the Welsh stages today, the congestion that we had on the road. Sometimes traffic jams of around 30 miles building up, this heading towards the Sweet Lamb stage. You see Tommi Mäkinen there, stuck in the traffic. How frustrating is this for drivers, trying to battle their way through situations like this to get to the stages?
Yes, of course it is, and then on the other hand you know that although you're not endangering traffic, but it doesn't look very nice when you're having to go outside past the queue, but what else to do? But apparently police has been very, very helpful, so I take them hat off to them.
Well, the stages like Sweet Lamb were so jam-packed that the police eventually sealed them. No more spectators allowed in. The rally was delayed around about half an hour because of all the traffic problems around mid-Wales. But when it did all restart, Tiff Niddell watched all the action on stages 12 and 13.
With the cars finally parked up where they should be, the huge crowd saw the action get back underway on the Sweet Lamb stage right in the heart of Wales. And it took just this one stage for Richard Burns to demonstrate he was now back in control. 7 seconds quicker than Tommi Mäkinen, who was an impressive second fastest, and 8 up on his teammate Juha Kankkunen. The Finn had no real problems, but after stage 13 was nearly 27 seconds behind the young Englishman. At least he was now back in second place, as Marcus Gronholm dropped 23.5 seconds on the first of the day's 2 runs through Sweet Lamb. Gronholm hadn't given up just yet though, because he beat Kankkunen by 3 seconds on the next stage and was now 7 seconds away from reclaiming second spot as the cars headed for service. McRae's new tyre choice and altered suspension had improved his Focus's grip, and he was almost happy with its handling. He had been trailing colour sights by 8 seconds, but when he arrived in the arena near the end of Sweet Lamb before him, the Spaniard was 4 minutes overdue. McRae was now fourth. But Sainz was still going, and for a minute the crowds were treated to an impromptu super special. A slow off on a tight hairpin had left Carlos stuck in a ditch. The car was barely damaged, but he was now down in 21st place. Tony Gardemeister headed the Seat squad into Sweet Lamb, revelling in the performance of his Evo 2 Cordoba. Sadly, his clutch gave out before he reached the end of the stage, and this was the last the crowds would see of the young Finn. Harry Rovanperä thus inherited an excellent 5th spot, with teammate Gwyndaf Evans still charging along in 7th. The man splitting the Seats was the ever hard-trying Didier Auriol, who swiftly rose from 12th to 8th and then 6th before the afternoon service halt. Mäkinen was also making progress back up the field. He was now 9th and still giving it his all. The Mitsubishi was now the meat in a Skoda sandwich, as Thierry's impressive run continued with 8th place. But both he and teammate Schwartz were slowed with niggling engine problems. As the rally neared the end of the day and its halfway mark, Gardemeister was still the only retirement from the 18 factory entries, but Martin Brundle was soon to be the second. His steady run in 40th place coming to an end with damage sustained from a big off in stage 13.
Well, there's no doubt who was the most embarrassed man at the Royal Welsh Showground this evening. Carlos Sainz.
It was the most stupid thing. It happened to me anytime in a rally, really. Hairpin right, probably the slowest, one of the lowest bend in the rally, and then I come in the power, and I came in the inside, and I thought, okay, no problem, maybe small ditch, and I come out. But it was a 1.5 meter ditch, so completely stuck in the ditch.
Hopefully these added lights will save him from further mishap. There's still plenty of applause for Colin McRae when he comes in. Some of his fans have been waiting for 3 hours just to see the car serviced. The mechanics even fixed a broken cross member, damaged in a gentle collision with a Hereford tree earlier today, since when McRae's day has hardly improved.
I've been having problems all day and just really haven't got it on the ball at all.
Can you say specifically what the problems have been, or in what area they've been?
A bit of engine, just not 100% happy with the car setup, struggling a bit with the gearbox. Made a couple of wrong tyre choices, so just a bit of everything.
Now you're what, about 1.5 minutes down on Richard? Is that too far to catch up, or is there still everything to play for?
No, absolutely. I mean, Richard's beaten us in every stage quite easily, so there's no way we can catch that up.
Just behind the leader, laid back as always, Juha Kankanen. Why are the Subarus so much quicker than everybody else at the moment?
Good car.
Richard Burns, though, reasserting his control on this event, that fastest time on stage 13, moving him more than 26 seconds ahead of his Subaru teammate Kankanen. Grönholm in third, Colin McRae fourth, 1:33 off the lead, and not fancying his chances of making up the gap. Now, because of the delay, the last stages of the day, stages 14 and 15, are taking place now in the darkness of the Welsh Forest. Richard Burns safely through both of them with a 29-second lead over Juha Kankanen. But we're hearing that Colin McRae has crashed on stage 15. We believe he may be out of the event, but at the last service, Peter Slater can give us the news.
Steve, I can confirm that Colin McRae is indeed out of the Network Q Rally of Great Britain. It all happened on the last stage. Details a little bit unclear, but I've been trying to find out precisely what happened from the Ford team director, Malcolm Wilson. Malcolm, we know Colin's gone off. What's happened?
Well, as far as we can believe, it's midway through the My Heading stage. Second time round, I believe there's a car still off the road from the first time round, which is the Marlboro Escort, I believe. Unfortunately, another Ford. And apparently it's just after the junction in the middle of the stage. Apparently Carlos had a knee moment there. Just spoke to Colin now. Freddie had actually just spun at the same point. But I think basically they'd been obviously going to go in the same direction as the car that's already off, but with that being parked there, they've had a heavy impact on the right-hand side, on Nicky's side again. And it's took the front wheel off and the rear wheel, and apparently it's quite badly damaged at the rear of the car.
But they're okay?
They're both fine, both okay, no problem at all.
But out of the event?
Yeah, out of the event, unfortunately.
Well, Colin McRae out, but I'm delighted to say that although this has been the longest day in the World Rally Championship, Richard Burns has come straight from the final time control to join us. How's your day been?
It's been pretty good. I'm looking forward to tomorrow now. The last couple of stages have been really not so nice to drive, dark and misty and foggy, and not a lot of fun, but looking forward to tomorrow.
Now, we saw some dramatic pictures earlier on of problems with smoke coming out of the bonnet, and it's all been caused, I understand, by this slight nick on an oil filter. Can you believe that something so small caused so much devastation?
Yeah, I can. That's the first time I've seen that, but I mean, it did cause us, once we got here, I wasn't really worried because I knew once the car got into service, the guys would be able to sort the problem out fairly quickly, so I wasn't too concerned.
Now, you were in this position this time last year. Do you feel more relaxed about tomorrow than you did 12 months ago?
Yeah, I think so, because, I mean, Juha was a little bit quicker than us through that last stage, but, I mean, 2 or 3 seconds. We got 30 seconds on him. I was perhaps a little more hungry and a little more anxious to win last year. This year I know what's coming up. I can still attack. I can still take more chances if I have to, and we'll have to see how the first few go tomorrow.
But we've had the hardest day, haven't we, now?
Well, I don't think so. We've had a very difficult day, but we haven't had the longest day. Tomorrow's longer, and there's some pretty hard stages. There's a 45-kilometre stage, and you know, anything can still happen. But I mean, every stage is difficult on this event.
But if you were a betting man, you'd be backing yourself surely to win. I mean, you've been confident all weekend, let's face it.
Yeah, I have to say that the car and the tyres, everything is working really, really well. Even though the conditions are horrible, I still have a good feeling that I can throw the car into the corners, get away with quite a few things. Braking's very good, and that's what I have to have the feeling for tomorrow.
Richard, thanks very much indeed for joining us. Good luck tomorrow. That's all from Final Service here at Bilf. Back to Steve in Cheltenham.
And it's a very good story from Richard Burns' point of view, Ari Vatanen. But just about half the rally still remains to be run tomorrow. He's a very cool, composed character. You're confident in his abilities as a front runner, I'm sure.
Exactly, and as I predicted yesterday, I mean, he has really found a new confidence, and because confidence comes from results, and now he knows he can do it, and I mean, he controls the rally now more or less, but still a long day left.
It's a 29-30 second lead over his teammate Juha Kankkunen. Both have the ability to win this event. No team orders, of course, and a certain edge, a certain rivalry between the two of them, isn't there?
Yeah, of course, when you're in the same team, you know that the cars are alike, and you know who is faster. That is because you are fast as a driver. But Juha, I think him being a mature driver, and Richard being a young one here still, I mean, he wants to win, and normally he's going to win.
So if you were Richard Burns tomorrow, he's saying he's looking forward to tomorrow. Would you relax? Would you hold back just a little? How would you approach tomorrow?
No, because the stages are so long still, and the conditions are rather treacherous and very unpredictable. So you have to keep on pushing, because the funny thing is that if you back off over 45-kilometer stage, I mean, you suddenly can lose 20 seconds, and then you panic and make a mistake. So no, he will keep on driving his usual Richard speed.
Thought for Colin McRae, who's had a wretched second half of the season. This is another blow that's going to be very hard to absorb.
Well, that's what rallying or sport or the life is all about. You have your ups and downs, but you know, when Colin is winning next year again, he will appreciate them, you know, twice as much as he would without these setbacks.
And it'll be a tremendous rivalry once again between Burns and McRae during the course of next season. But let's take a look at tomorrow's third leg. As I say, final leg, toughest action of the rally. 7 stages, some real monsters. Resolven, stage 20 at just under 28 miles is the longest of the rally. A total of 119 miles tomorrow, more than half the rally. But Richard Burns is out front, leading by 29 seconds from Juha Kankkunen, and he's just about halfway to achieving what he set out to do, winning back-to-back rallies of Great Britain and strengthening his claims to be the British #1, at least alongside Colin McRae. Richard Burns leads the rally.